I think you got two different scenes. I mean, there's the Rice Boy scene, and then there's, you know, the faster car scene. You know, as far as like guys that aren't into the body kits and shit like that, like as far as that getting bigger, that's cool. But like as far as the Rice Boy shit, you don't really got to worry about the Rice Boys with the clear taillights and stuff like that. Whatever, you know, they're gonna go to their car shows. But I mean, it's good that more people are getting into it as far as like, you know, building motors and having nice, you know, clean cars done properly. That's cool. It's always cool to meet more people like that, you know.
As with any passion or hobby, we can all remember our first experiences and what got us hooked. The people in this film come from different areas and are different ages, yet all share a love for automobiles and import tuning. This love resulted from different reasons, yet the outcomes were always the same.
How I got into this whole import mess. Well, I dreamt about it for a long time, riding around in my mini truck, so I already claimed myself to being a part of the import scene because I didn't drive a domestic car. I'm originally from Alabama. I guess the accent will give that away right away. But the true heart of the South, the true heart of NASCAR, I have nothing to do with NASCAR. I've never had any inspirations for NASCAR. And I grew up racing motorcycles, you know, Yamaha, flat track. So I already had a love for the Japanese bikes. And I remember growing up always wanting a 1980 to 83 GTI. And my brother and myself just racing all the back roads of Alabama, you know, just like if I would have only known about rally then.
I've been into cars my whole life, really. I mean, ever since I could speak, walk, crawl. I remember being, you know, 10, 12, 13, 14, just walking home from school and seeing all the older kids with their cars.
When I was 16, I met a couple of guys that were really into cars, mostly import cars. When I finally got a car, you know, I looked up to this one guy. His name was Jebo Lopez, and he was kind of like an older brother to me because he was also Filipino, and he was really into cars, and that's what kind of sparked my interest.
My roommate now, which was my good friend since 5th grade, he picked up a 98 Type R when we were in high school, and that set it off.
Yeah, there was like a group of us. First it was like me and my friend Dylan, Eric had a car. We all skated together basically, and then we all eventually got into cars.
Before I even got my driver license, I was going with older friends to the street races. Actually, Catman and a couple other guys, we'd meet up with them and go to the street races, so I was hooked.
We were at a family party, and we noticed one of our older cousins, he had a 95 Civic Coupe EX.
It was white, it was lower, and had like freaking 95 GSRs on them.
Yeah, he came up from the Bay, in the Bay Area, and then we started like learning all his tricks and stuff with the Hondas.
I don't know, I was just looking for something different, you know, and then, you know, we all, like 3 of my buddies also got Hondas too. And I went to Tampa, which is what really got me into it. And I saw my buddy John had a CRX with a B16 in it. And this was back in '97. So I took a ride in it, and that was it. That was, you know, what got me into it completely. And then I ended up getting a 93 hatch, and it took a little while before I got my first motor, but then once I got a B16, I decided to put it in myself, and I mean, there was a lot of problems along the way because I was just 17 at the time. Yeah, I'm all self-taught, and I mean, I learned through trial and error, you know? And it was me and a couple of my other buddies, they started, you know, of course we started, you know, just getting the intake and the header and that kind of stuff like that, but then once we actually started, you know, doing the motor swaps, it was me and my one buddy, Chris. We just really got into it.
Oh, it all started with bikes, just basic mechanics, wanting to work on something is, kind of just where I started with anything, just wanted to put my hands on stuff, and then it moved into wanting to work on the cars. Obviously, turning 16, you got to be able to drive, you got to be able to do something with something, and it just started with a 90 Accord and went from there, and I just built stuff up, and it's just like you just hate being the same. You want to be different, you want to do something different, and you just kind of build it.
The project car, the driving force behind everyone in this film. Although each project car is different, and every person's style is different, all tuners will agree that a project car becomes much more than just a car.
You know, when you're into it, it consumes you. It's everything. It's all your money, it's all your time. You know, it turns out to be your girlfriend. It turns out to be like all of your friends that you surround yourself with. Everybody knows what you do and how much you do it, and it's the greatest thing when you can make it work right.
This guy flips through cars like
Dude,
he's women.
All right. Oh, hey. I wasn't even naming my car.
Lisa,
I think
Angela,
that's
Pamela,
Renee. I love you from around the way.
My favorite was my blue CRX because it was like when the transplants just came in, so we put LS motor and it was LS with JG301 cams.
Yeah, like
And I remember like racing El Natural on the street. And that was fun. Those are the fun days.
I had a white Del Sol, the flat black 4-door EF. I had a black DA.
Yeah, I sold my hatch. Yeah, sold my hatch to my father. Turned it back to stock because he always wanted the car, good mileage or whatever. And then bought the first Type R I ever rode in, which is behind me. Bought that for my roommate. Pulled the turbo. It was a fully built Dart and solid deck sleeves, turbo, all that crap. Sold it. Got a 11.6 to 1 bottom end setup in there. Got some plans. Keep it clean.
To a black EK hatch. From there, I got out of it a little bit. Bought a BMW. Hated it. I didn't hate it. I just got bit. I got bit.
You loved it.
That was a different BMW. I had another BMW before that. Got bit by the bug again. Jumped in, got my second 4-door EF, the silver one.
My first car that of one of my recent builds was a 1990 Honda Civic EF. It was a sedan. I kind of chose that car at that time because I was really the whole story was I was really looking for an EG at the time. But at the time, they were going for about $5,000, $6,000 for a stock one, a nice clean one. And I didn't really want to spend that much money on that because I'm, just like anybody else, a budget, racer, budget builder, whatnot. And I used to have a 4-door in high school. And so my plans to get an EG back then, because of the whole price thing, I said, you know what? Why don't I just take it back with something that what I used to have? So I bought a 4-door Civic, 1990 Civic, and a lot of people at the time were really cautious as far as turboing it and whatnot. And those were my big plans, to show that you can turbo basically out of the junkyard, an import yard motor, and just through fine tuning and whatnot, you wouldn't have any problems. That was kind of like my whole story to that. And I've always been into the whole Japanese look. The look in Japan is different than it is here in the US. In Japan, they have a one-piece headlight. It's got a different hood, it's got a different fender, it's actually got a grille, just like an old school Accord. And I sourced it and decided to put that together, built that together, got the fine tuning out as far as tuning the turbo. Also kind of put together a lot of stuff that I researched on, which is HKS B-Series manifold, which is a hardware piece to find these days because at that time HKS didn't come full force with their B-Series turbo kit. And I was able to source that. It was a fun project. I learned a lot from that.
All of the people in this film can remember their first projects and can relate to the feeling of working countless hours, all to afford that one rare part that they just had to have, and finally achieving a personal goal or idea relating to their cars.
As weird as it sounds, I tell you, and I don't know if anyone could relate to me that will watch this video, but my first car, like I said, was a 94 GSR. And I've owned some pretty nice supercars throughout the years. You know, of course, being an enthusiast of, you know, anything from S2000s, Type Rs, you know, Evolution. I mean, anything in general. So, but it, you know, nothing ever gives you that feeling your first car does. You know, it's like you get your first license, you get that car, you get a set of wheels. It's like you always remember that in your mind, you know. But as far as and personally in favor, I've always been an enthusiast of the Integra Type R. It was, like I said, coming into Integras, you always look up to the top model that you can't have, you know. And that was the one. So, you know, now today I own 2 of them, but as crazy as it sounds. But yeah, definitely I'm an enthusiast of all cars. I've owned Del Sols, yeah, you know, every hatchback body style you can imagine. So
I got into high school and a couple of my friends started getting into the same stuff, and eventually I picked up my first car, a '94 Civic CX hatchback, pretty much the lowest model they made, and set out to do a bunch of stuff to it, and from there we got a lot further than I ever expected.
Your car, Slow Turtle, was about so many things. It was about, you know, just being able to get away from everybody. We just sat in the garage, did our own thing. Nobody gave us grief for it.
Working on that car was it was exciting, you know, like it just brought us together, and I still remember the first day that we got my car started. I mean, after all that work, it didn't have a hood on it at the time. I don't even think the lights were working, and because we had torn everything apart. And that day that we got the motor running, we just, you know, took it around with my friends, kind of a desolate area, and we ended up getting pulled over by a fire truck of all things, who saw the car, you know, in shambles, and it was loud. The header was like barely connected and no exhaust, and it was just super loud, and we were just dirty. There was no seat belts in it, and we were just laughing. You could not take the smile off of our face, because, you know, we did it. We did something that we were really involved with and really into, and it was funny that we got pulled over for it being so loud, but we didn't even care, you know, just that excitement of seeing that happen.
I don't know, it's always like funny stories, like when you're working on cars, because I mean, at first, like when you do it yourself, you do a swap yourself, and you learn a lot doing a swap yourself, and you run into a lot of problems. I remember one time I was doing a swap for my friend Craig Fowler, and we were at my parents' house doing it, and we were up like, I think I was buying his motor out of his car as a Type R motor, a Japanese Type R, and I had my stock motor in my car at the time because I sold my US Type R motor and I wanted his. So we were putting my stock DX motor into his car and his Type R motor into my car, and we were working all night. I mean, it was like probably 4 in the morning, and we were like dead tired, and I just fell asleep. I went in my room and passed out, and Craig was still under his car, like on jack stand. The car was on jack stand, he's under his car, and he fell asleep. I was too tired to even wake him up. Like, he woke up at like 5 in the morning, and like he opened his eyes and the car's like right above him. He freaked out, like he didn't really know where he was at or anything, and he was all pissed for not waking him up. But that was kind of a funnier story then.
Yeah, my car was definitely more than just a hobby. It was indeed a lifestyle for me, because I mean, I wouldn't just go home and be like, oh, there's my car, you know, I'm gonna start work on it. But it was more like, you know, this car, I dream about that car. I dreamed about what it would be like, and you know, it consumed all my friends and everything around me. You know, like I would go to work, not just to work, but I would work for my car, and that's what all my paychecks went to. You know, it wasn't just like my car was my side hobby. My car was my life, you know, at that time. And I dumped, you know, hours, blood, sweat, tears into that car. You know, it was everything to me, and I guess it showed, you know.
Another DA. I think I've had 3 DAs in all. I think I'm missing one. Something about DAs and EFs I just love. From there, I had an EG Coupe, another EK hatch.
Yeah, my Type R was the first car I ever really put together by myself, you know, without outside assistance. It was a theft recuff, so it had no interior, no motor, nothing like that. Ended up getting a JDM motor, swapped it in, did the seats, just kind of put it back together. It's a really good feeling to actually do something, you know, yourself without assistance and kind of just your own knowledge. And
with the EG, I knew that the outside body would be just like any other EG. A lot of them are just subtle like that, so I wasn't looking for the big body kit or rim or whatnot. The real main focus was all in the engine bay, and that's what I wanted to set apart from the rest of all the other cars. And I think one of the main contributing factors of why I did the way I did with the engine bay is because I did a lot, you know, I was always into hot rods, and you know, watching the Learning Channel, American Hot Rod, and a bunch of these other guys, I said, you know what, I want to build a nice, clean, aesthetic, clean, perfect looking engine bay, and that's what I wanted to do. So that's when we went ahead and shaved the whole engine bay, redesigned the brake system, just basically cut the firewall to flesh out a lot of it and make it look, from factory, not change it up too much, but just with all the imperfections as far as the holes and whatnot, filled them all up, and that's what we ended up with that car. That itch is always going to be within you, whether, I've even said it before, I said I don't think I could ever drive a stock car, a totally stock car. It's just not in my nature, just because I've always had that itch for fixing a car.
To be able to complete something, to actually get it done and say, this car's done, I finished this one, was the most exciting feeling ever. And especially get feedback from people that's positive and know and see and recognize what you did and how much time you put into it just means the world to me. For me, it was everything. And it was everything for the entire time I was working on the project, and it consumed me, and it was, exactly what I wanted with a finished product. It was exactly what I wanted. And to see it go on paper and to be able to work with, just everybody that I worked with was just a blessing. Everything fell into place, and it just came out as the most exciting thing I've ever done.
They're never finished. The thing about cars is they're never finished. Even if someone says, well, my car's finally finished, bullshit, dude. There's something you want to change. It's
No, I
never,
think my coworker said this today too. He's like, every time you ask a person, it's almost done. It's all.
Almost
the answer
done.
is anytime you ask, it's almost done.
But you'll see stuff on the internet. Oh, I finished my project. I finished my car. Here it is. I'm like, bullshit. 2 weeks later, you want new wheels. 2 weeks later, there's something else out, something bigger, something better that you want to buy for your car. It's just what's in you. You keep building. It never ends.
JDM thing?
JDM.
A la JDM.
Oh, JDM. Oh, cool.
JDM, 3 letters that have taken on quite a legacy among the import tuning community. Whether loved or hated, JDM must be recognized as a serious change in the way enthusiasts tuned and modified their cars.
There is a difference now between JDM cars that were around back then and JDM cars that are around now.
I think the JDM thing is a scene.
I think it's more a way of how you view life, and I appreciate that the JDM aspect is there because it's like how a skateboarder views the terrain around him. He's like, ooh, check, I can hit that lip right there, I can roll like that, I can hit this thing right there. Well, JDM-ism is kind of like the same, it's a thought process. It's like, it's how I want my car to look. It's how I want my car to be perceived. It's my appreciation for the Honda make itself.
The term was coined sometime in the late 1990s and refers to the origins of a somewhat different style of import tuning. Although there is no single right definition, the term is often used to describe the style which was emerging primarily out of Southern California in the 1990s that emphasized clean, Japanese exterior parts with an overall emphasis on function and devoting more money into the motor and suspension.
In high school, we never thought of this whole coined word JDM thing just because, some people would define it as, is it from Japan, just parts from Japan? Does that make your car JDM or just this whole clean look as like OEM look? Or, to me, I've always just had that whole taste as far as just really clean, subtle. Even when we had, body kits and whatnot, it's always been pretty, laid back and clean. That's basically the kind of look that I've always gone for.
With the introduction of the internet, people began to notice this style was becoming more popular nationwide. The people who started this style, however, did not feel it was anything worth talking about. They didn't consider themselves pioneers or trendsetters. They were just buying the quality parts they wanted and keeping a style they enjoyed.
Back in '95, there really wasn't anything that wasn't real Japanese stuff out. There was no fake rims or fake anything, It was just like, you wanted nice rims, you'd get, Mugen or Racing Hard or whatever else you wanted to get.
What we wanted to go after, at least what I thought I wanted to go after, was FS Squad. I think they just kind of set the trend in so many ways. It was like the basic B-Series swap, but then you got your JDM goodies over here, and it had all kinds of flavor and style to it. And Seattle area didn't have any of that. And it was just kind of like, when you saw a car like that set up, that was a big deal. And it wasn't a lot of money, and it wasn't fiberglass everywhere, and it wasn't, 17, 18-inch rims. It was a big deal to have 5-lug, 15-inch rims, and just all kinds of stuff that you can't go to the store and buy.
So the stuff that we bought was expensive stuff, and we didn't have a choice. So it was definitely about the saving game as far as much, putting money away to get these certain parts. I mean, something as, the corner light, back in '93, they were charging $160 for this. And, it's crazy. And, nowadays, because there's so many different sources out, those are a lot more easily accessible.
So like around 98, late 98, I started selling Type R parts on the internet, typerparts.com at the time, on Honda Tech and all them other sites, we were doing the same kind of stuff. But from the transition from 99 till 2001, it was just an explosion of it went from 5 calls a day to probably 50 calls a day. And it was people buying the same type, I would say 2001 is when it was really getting huge, where people were calling all the time for Type R pistons. And then I actually, had enough customers where I could start bringing in, forged pistons and doing stuff like that. But compared to back in, the way it was in 99, there wasn't a whole lot of action, 98, 99, and then from the time when I left in 02, it was, insane, every day, 50 phone calls at least, people getting timing belts, full rebuilds, bearings, it seemed like a lot of people were starting to build their own motors then.
Kind of like the Southern California street race scene where everything was NA, It wasn't necessarily about being JDM, it just kind of morphed into that. Everybody was spending money on motors and stuff.
Over time, magazines, car shows, and internet forums were associating the 3 letters with everything, from wheels, paint, and motors, to seats, culture, and even people. The desire for this style was huge.
I mean, if I compared my EG back then, 98, to today, it would be nothing because it's gone so far beyond what it is, what it was.
I called him up the other day. Yeah, how was Nisa? He says 1998 called, they want their style back.
Now that the JDM scene is the JDM scene and it's all JDM'd out and it's just rah! It's all right, cool. Well then I sit here and look at it and be like, what can I possibly do to contribute? But it's okay, well, JDM's hit this wall right here of what can I do to contribute? I want to inspire beyond, the guys that are making the scene happen. Okay, what's next? It's well, what about JDM Rally? What about JDM trucks? What about JDM ASICS shoes? It's here are all these kids rocking the Nike Dunks, but if you're so freaking JDM out, why aren't you rocking the ASICS? Point blank. If you want to get silly with it, then get silly with it. I got a JDM toothbrush. All right, there you go, Johnny Wong. How's that? I'll brush my teeth.
Anything that's gonna get hot is gonna get cold, and vice versa. And if you're really into it, you're really into it. Those guys that are really down and grind and go to Japan and buy their stuff are always gonna love it. And then you've got those people that are just in it for the money. And there will be that for anything, any style, any generation. And I myself see it as, personalization. Somebody wants something that other people can't have, and to a certain extent, and to extreme extents at some point, just wanting to get something that's so rare that nobody else can touch it. And it's different for everybody. Somebody's personality is going to want that really rare part just to throw in somebody's face. And somebody else is going to want it because they picture this part in their head in some junkyard all the way in Japan that they want to go and find themselves, and it's a treasure hunt. And it's just, it's different for everybody. And I mean, I think there's people that do it because they like that style, they like that flavor, and they're gonna buy the parts that are the knockoff, and they like that look, and that's fine. And they'll be done with the industry in 2-3 months. They're gonna lose that flavor, they're gonna lose that passion. But there's somebody that's gonna, read a magazine 5 years from now with an 88 Civic and some old Mugans on it, and they're gonna love it to death.
As of today, many people still appreciate the style and feel it's going strong, while others feel it's a quickly dying trend. No one can predict the future trends and styles of import tuning, but most will agree, racing, function, and creativity will always be in the forefront for true enthusiasts. Racing is something people must experience to truly understand. There are countless forms and styles of racing. In the United States import scene, drag racing is the most prevalent. Like most forms of racing, import drag racing spawned on the street. Eventually, events like Test and Tune, as well as Battle of the Imports, became more and more popular, allowing tuners to test their cars in the quarter mile safely and build affordable, yet very powerful motors. JDM-styled cars, however, were tuned in a way that was traditional to circuit racing. Road racing, or circuit racing, has yet to become as big in the United States as it is in Japan.
You know, Honda made this. You know, Mugen is their aftermarket parts guy. You know, there's all these other companies working with it. Well, I want the same things that, like, I see in the best motoring videos on the racetrack. Because that's the thing about, I think JDM, the aspects of, hasn't quite come to the realization of, is racing is the ultimate inspiration. Racing never goes out of style. And function of racing is the fashion. Function is the fashion. So if you have a properly functioning car, it'll never go out of style. It will always be in fashion because everyone loves racing, hands down. That has what has inspired this scene from day one, is racing.
It originated with this, the Rice Boy stuff, this typical, intake and exhaust and stuff like that. And then after going to all the street races and going through all the magazines, had a subscription to all the, turbo magazines, Sport Compact Car, you name it. Going through there and then just wanted to do, whatever I could. And I always wanted to turbocharge it because of Arthur's G20. And, from day one, I was like, yeah, I'm going to turbocharge it. I'm going to run 13s, whatever. And started taking it to the track, and Mission Raceway was up here, and went there a couple times, and running 15s, bone stock, and yeah, that car I had for I would say 3 years, and turbocharged it within the first, I would say, 4 or 5 months, and it was a pretty basic setup, stock B18C, had a T04B turbo on it, custom turbo kit. And that made around 250 at the wheels until I picked up my first sponsor, Import Special Automotive in Tacoma. And Donnie there had a dyno and got into my first engine management system with that. And that was the PMS system, and tuned in another 50 horsepower, ran 13 O's on street tires. Yeah, and I remember going up to Mission, and back then there was, 95% domestics, and there'd be 4 or 5 of us Honda guys hiding in the corner, getting weird looks from all these, domestic guys as we rolled in, and yeah, and started running 13s with that car and started turning some heads. That motor didn't last very long because obviously it blew up. One after that had actually fully built, turbocharged, and then ran mid-12s with that one, and then people were starting catching up, running 12 or 13, low 13s, and then yeah, I decided to switch gears, go all motor, and did a fully built 2 all motor setups and ran 12s with both of them.
Many tuners are finally realizing the potential of their cars and the excitement that goes into a road racing event. The future of road racing, in conjunction with hybrids and other Hondas, looks very, very bright.
Not that we've always understood the racing inspiration from Japan, because we've bought, borrowed, and stole every aspect of Japanese culture aside from the racing, because Japan is in the circuit racing. And here we are drag racing these cars, taking every road racing part and putting it on a drag race car? No. So that part of it has yet to come to us. I think it's slowly getting there, but for me, there's still hope. There's still, forward motion. There's still, room to grow.
I was trying to hit up track events. Right when I built that car is when I got into road racing. And actually Eric B he lived up in San Francisco, and he's kind of like my mentor, I guess you could say. And he knew Tommy that was just here. Tommy was like, he's more of the road racer than Eric B is, but I hooked up with them and went to a couple speed trials events back in like 99, around 99 or so. And I started that off. I've been going ever since. As far as the style, I see a lot of people that are putting really nice track parts on their car, not really using them. And I see a lot of people who are putting parts on their car starting to think, well, I'll take my car to the track and see how these parts work, you know what I mean? So actually starting to use the parts. I think more and more people are starting to like get into road racing and like using the parts for what they're for, you know? So hopefully like that'll continue, and I think K-swaps are gonna really like just pick up, and you know, just V-Series is gonna die out eventually.
I heard of a track event going down at Pacific Raceways down in Kent, Washington, and the event was being held by A&J Racing up in Vancouver. You know, I've always looked up to them. I've always sourced them for some car parts, and I got in contact with them to see if I could hook up with them and join their event. So what they offered me was like a whole day of track racing, not drag racing, like track racing, going around the whole track, you know, turning, shucking and jiving, using your whole car for what it was built for like a whole day, you know. And it was like $200, which is cheap compared to seat time, compared to price, you know. And it was an experience, you know, like at every corner, I thought I was gonna die. Which I guess, you know, is what you're supposed to do when you're racing, you know. If you feel like you're in total control of a car, then you ain't driving it fast enough. And that was my whole theory, you know. I scared the shit out of my co-driver, and that was my first time driving, and this dude was like a professional like Porsche track racer, you know. But I took my car out there with the A&J boys, and I was keeping my own, you know, smoking like a couple C32s and, you know, all these AMG Benzes, you know, a couple RSXs and S2000s, but Benz S2000 from A&J fucking whooped my ass.
And during the whole drag racing time with the Integra, I had picked up a few sponsors, and they all were into the road racing side of stuff. And they were constantly going to the track, doing track days, and constantly trying to get me to go. And it wasn't until, I would say, middle of 2003 or something when I actually went to one and watched, and I was, wow, this is totally fun. And don't get me wrong, drag racing is fun and stuff, but it only lasts for, you know, 12 seconds at a time. So after I got the Supra, and I ended up selling the Integra, got at Hondas for about 3 or 4 months, and you know, once you've got the itch, it comes back to bite you, you know, and started going to road racing and bought this hatch that I have here, decided to go, hey, I'm gonna go road race and do the club racing thing, and planned to do it last year, but you know, things just didn't work out, ended up blowing a motor at the track. Got the itch again earlier this year, finally, you know, got off my ass and finished up this car and prepped it, got my license, started doing the local club racing tour here, and yeah.
Whether it is drag racing, road racing, or even street racing, racing itself is what inspires all motorsports enthusiasts. In the early years of Honda tuning, several import car magazines were born. Although the shelves are now filled with countless import car magazines, in the early days there were only a few. Sport Compact Car, Super Street, and TMR were the 3 best known, and began exposing people to a culture and style that many didn't know existed. TMR itself had a different feel. This magazine had many more photos than the rest, and its editor, Rodney Wells, viewed it as a way to show as much of what was going on in the Southern California tuning scene as possible.
Ken and RJ and myself all sat down and says, well, you know, if the magazine is not going to really support our scene the way we saw that we wanted them to support the scene, then the only thing we can do is start our own magazine. And I had this little, you know, idea, and I live in Costa Mesa. I worked 10 years in the snow, skate, and surf industry. And there was this little bitty magazine that was getting handed out at ASR and the little local shops around my house. And yeah, it was this thing called Electric Ink. It was like about this, you know, the surf community, skate community around there. And I'm like, dude, this is perfect. I mean, I've been going to battle for 6 years and watching what was happening. And me being a graphic designer at that time, I'm like, there's a huge problem with getting, you know, stuff in the kids' hands at the shows. It's like, you know, the kid, you know, a guy's there with his girlfriend and he's holding the drinks and holding their purse and his backpack, and you know, and all these manufacturers, they're trying to give the kids stuff, and the guy's like, whatever. And so I'm like, man, it's a huge problem just getting the guy to take something home. So that's when it like hit me, like, man, we do a magazine, and like at the same time, I didn't want to compete with Sport Compact Car there on the newsstand. I wanted a magazine to just go straight to the kid. It was made for that guy going to the show, going to the events. That was my focus, like, we're gonna do something. I wanted it to be ultra accessible by the kid, and almost at the same time be a decoder to only that the kids would get it, you know, like the peers around us. If some old guy or manufacturer picked it up, you'd, you know, whatever, you know. That's why we started, that's how we started it. And that, you know, was the leading, you know, the whole, you know, toy machine racing.
Message forums are very popular these days, and countless forums exist. In the beginning, however, one stuck out. The Hybrid Board was an internet message forum based primarily on hybrid Honda engine swaps. With the increasing number of people realizing how easy it was to transform their base model Civic hatchback into a high-performance race-ready vehicle, the board couldn't have come at a better time. The site offered help with wiring, as well as other common questions regarding putting dual overhead cam motors into these single overhead cam Civics. It was a relatively small, close-knit community of people who, although sometimes didn't know each other in person, still related to the passion and interest in hybrid Hondas. Many of these original members met some of their closest friends through the hybrid message forum.
Well, the hybrid board is what really got me interested in going to the next level, speed and performance, really.
It's definitely a good resource.
Totally.
A lot of underground guys.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first joined that board, I got slammed for being a Super Street editor. They were like, what the fuck? But it was good because I got to, you know, it was kind of like you come into a world where you don't really know. Kind of learn a few things. Yeah, that's actually a good board to like pay your dues because, you know, after you've been on that board for a while, they kind of respect you in some ways. Even if you're like me, even if you say something stupid, you know. But yeah, you meet some cool people off there.
I was definitely intimidated when I first got on the board. I mean, my friend Houston was on the board, and he was the guy who actually had the DA that I liked that was stock, and I skated with him. So I went on Catman's site and then found a link to the hybrid board. And I was just reading through some of the posts, you know, seeing what little box. I couldn't register. They wouldn't let you just register, you know. And I got my friend Houston's email address because I hadn't contacted him since I left Dallas. And I was like, hey, I want to get on hybrid, you know, can you get me a username? Because I tried, they had you like answer a question, you know, to like get on hybrid, like back in the day. And I answered the question right, and I still didn't get a password. So I was like, what gives, you know? So my friend Houston got me a password, and I had to have like, they had to have like 10 like tech posts before you could even post in the alley. So like I was all like, you know, scared that they were gonna ban me or something if I didn't have all the tech posts.
I think about half the people I know today, I mean, I'd say they've all come from the hybrid board, really. I mean, it's just like, it's like family, really.
Eric Bauer and Tommy, I didn't know them at all before I got on the hybrid forum. I met a lot of people, Tony, that guy over there.
I went to high school with a few buddies that kind of, we started getting into cars and stuff, but after high school, I think is when my passion, you know, really grew, because a lot of my friends moved away for college, and I was actually at work one day, and I worked at a complex at a coffee shop that had a Singular Wireless next door, and every day there was this 94 GSR that was slammed on SI wheels, and this 99 black SI that was slammed, you know, and it was totally clean, just simple, you know, the same style as my hatchback. And we would all park next to each other, and it was funny because none of us knew who each other were, but we'd all park next to each other every day. And then finally one day I'm working, and this guy comes in, and he's like, hey, what's up, man? Is that your hatchback? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, is that your Integra? And he's like, yeah. And like, so I mean, just a simple hello. And then today is one of my best friends, a guy, Javon, and it was Jeremy, and we all met just because of working in the same complex. And then from there, he was like telling me about this website, SeattleImports.com. So I checked that out. And then my buddy Dave and I just, you know, it was a forum board, just hung out on there, saw what some of the other local people were doing. And I mean, it sounds weird to say that I met him through SeattleImports.com, but a lot of my closest friends today were people that I met through cars.
You know, we got the internet, found Honda Tech, saw, you know, this whole JDM, you know, styling, you know, just using OEM parts and making it look clean on the US cars, because they are a lot different, and just going from there.
I think the internet has just influenced me myself a lot, and it just also just gives you this widespread of being able to see what everybody else is doing, and I think it's a great opportunity to, you know, get out and meet different people, and then you kind of realize that the industry is a lot bigger than your neighborhood, and you get to, you know, have friendly competitions with people and also see kind of what everybody's made of and what they're doing out there, and it's a good thing. Yeah, I think it's good to network. I think it's good to, you know, go out and meet people. You got to be careful sometimes with, you know, who you hang out with and who you build your cars with and who you race with and, you know, who you associate with. But eventually you can, you know, you can weed them out. You can fine tooth comb who you need to be around and who you don't. And at that point you can, you know, do good.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of brought, I guess, really the right people together. People who are really more into performance.
Automotive theft has always been an issue with modified cars, yet the import car scene has elevated it to a whole new level. Although people are aware of the issue itself, not everyone realizes the extent of how bad it is and how much it affects the owners of these project cars.
People are always going to want to steal your goods, especially the better you make it, you know, and at this point it feels like they don't even want to steal it because they want it, they want to steal it because they don't want you to have it. And it's like you take your steering wheel off, you club up, you do whatever. It doesn't even matter how many alarms you have. They're going to come in with a tow truck and they're going to take your car. And it's a sad realization that you got to think, you know, when you're going to that movie, when you're going to dinner, when you're parking in a lot overnight, that it's like, you know, somebody really wants your stuff, they're going to take it.
I always had an alarm or, you know, full coverage insurance on my older cars, but never really was too worried about like driving to the movies or dinner, you know. Nowadays it's like you have like any kind of, you know, Type R parts in your car at all, or Type R, it's like, it's impossible to like take it to the movies, you know, because you just know it's gonna get stolen.
You can't take a nice car anywhere, you know? I mean, it sucks. I mean, that's just the way it is, yeah, really. Like, you can't take a car like that to the movies, what's gonna happen, you know? I mean, you're just gonna hope that someone is not into imports when they show up at the movies, you know what I mean? It's like, you might be able to make it all right, but it's flipping the coin. Is the car gonna be there when you get back or not, you know? That's why you gotta buy a beater. You have to drive around in the beater.
I could bring it to the movies, but will I enjoy the movie? I'll be like thinking about my car at the same time. And I was like, I just rather have it be safe at home and don't even have to worry about, like, sometimes insurance don't even cover all the parts that you put in there, so you gotta think of that in the long run, yeah.
So in my next car, of course, an EK with 5-lug and B16 and all that good stuff. And I couldn't hold on to it because everywhere I'd park it, I'd just cross my fingers. I'd be having dinner with a friend for like 20 minutes, whatever. I'd have my fingers crossed, or I'd be looking outside. I'd be walking around the grocery store with my fucking steering wheel in my hand, you know, just praying that my car would still be there when I came back out. And just the stress it causes, it's not worth it, really.
I think it's mandatory to have a garage, you know, for any like nice like fixed up car, you know, and it sucks because it's just like inevitable. I see on the board every single day like cars getting stolen left and right, especially Type Rs, and it's, I don't know, I wish it wasn't like that. I mean, I had my Civic stolen a few weeks back.
And it destroys the industry to a certain extent because it raises prices and kills prices at the same time. it cost me so much money to, drive a Type R just to insure the thing, when it's like, I'm not gonna be racing, I'm not gonna get it stolen, but they don't know and they don't care. So it's gonna go up high because somebody else wants to take my car, and everybody else's car for that matter that's the same model. So it's just killer. It destroys the industry.
Over the years, many cars featured in magazines and known across the country have been stolen, stripped, and destroyed.
That's probably more due to the internet because people just post pictures of their cars everywhere they can. And you know what? If someone's gonna take it, they're gonna take it anyway, so.
Yeah, my coupe was stolen in January, and I just immediately told myself, never again am I running a Honda, because it's like, around here it's like gold.
I parked my car outside of my house because my roommate was asleep and she was blocking my garage, and like my car did mean a lot to me, but it didn't mean enough to wake up my roommate and tell her to move her fucking car so I could park my shit in the garage, So I just left it out there, auto locked with the alarm, It was as secure as it can get without being towed away, And that's what happened to my car the next morning. I woke up, tried to go to school, I fucking hop out there and my fucking driveway's empty, And I'm just like at that point I already knew what happened. I knew what happened, I just started laughing, I knew this day would come. Like it did hurt me, a little bit, but I mean the car is just a car, Like the car was my life, but the car didn't make who I was, I made that car. That car wouldn't be shit without me, So when we recovered it, a bunch of people were suspicious, saying that I insurance frauded my car. So to prove these motherfuckers wrong, we found my wheels on eBay, the Volks EE28Ns, and for those who don't know, those are pretty rare wheels, and the offset and the bolt pattern and rim size that were on my car. So there was only probably four sets made that I know of. So we found this set on eBay with my exact tires and, coincidentally, the dude's from Washington. So I'm like, those are my motherfucking wheels, So we hit up this dude and pretend like we're an interested buyer. Eventually we won the auction on eBay and we met up with this dude, Sanpan. We met up with him at McDonald's, 30 of my buddies hiding in McDonald's while my buddy Javon was outside pretending like he was an interested buyer. So once the Sanpan cat busted out my wheels, 30 of us came out from McDonald's, like a little big family, and this motherfucker was scared as shit, And we held him there for questioning, and we flagged down a cop, and the Seattle Police Department confiscated my wheels and got his information, and then they eventually did a search warrant on his house and found the rest of my car parts chilling at Sanpan's, his crib.
I actually got the Civic back in '93. I think I only had it for 3 weeks. There wasn't even any radio in it or whatnot. It was pretty much a stripped down model because I was gonna fix it all up anyway. But it was crazy. Yeah, I was actually carjacked at gunpoint by 3 guys. Wow. And luckily, they just took the car, and that same night they recovered it, and it was actually on the news. It's crazy, it's crazy, but yeah, they build these cars, anything's a risk though, and you just gotta take precautions.
People are going to whole new lengths to protect their hard work and the parts they purchased with hard-earned money.
This is by far the best thing you can do to protect your car from thieves. I don't know how to cock it or shoot it. So
that's loaded.
Oh, okay, yeah, here.
It's loaded. Hey, why don't you hand it back to Jeff?
Who, Jeff?
He's a marksman.
While no one film can cover the entire history of this phenomenon or tell everyone's personal stories, there are definitely many stories to be told. There is a deep history of people who did not modify their cars to fit in with trends or hype. They did, however, modify their cars because it was their true passion.